In this episode of Bright Hearth, we'll be kicking off a short series entitled A Homemaker's Rules for Life, where we'll work through some foundational principles in the life of the homemaker. What are we prone to forget in the thick of a busy day, week, and month? What truths do we need to be tethered to in the gales of motherhood, the pressure of keeping a home, and the busyness of a productive life lived before the Lord? For many of you, these won't be brand new ideas. Most of what we need to hear doesn't fall in that category, after all. Did I snap at my kids because I just didn't know I shouldn't have? Was I disrespectful to my husband because nobody ever told me I shouldn't be? Of course not. We all need to be reminded of these things from time to time. The first rule is simple. You are not your own. The Heidelberg Catechism, written in 1563, beautifully captures the heart behind this rule. It asks, what is your only comfort in life and in death? Then answers that I am not my own, but belong, body and soul, in life and in death, to my faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. He has fully paid for all my sins with his precious blood and has set me free from the tyranny of the devil. He also watches over me in such a way that not a hair can fall from my head without the will of my Father in heaven. In fact, all things must work together for my salvation. Because I belong to him, Christ, by his Holy Spirit, assures me of eternal life and makes me wholeheartedly willing and ready from now on to live for him. Yes and amen. You, homemaker, are not your own. You belong to God. And in your belonging to God, he has also made you to belong to others as well. You belong to your husband. You belong to your children. You belong to your church. You are not your own. What does that mean, and how do we act like we believe what it means? That's what this episode of Bright Hearth is all about. We're glad you're here.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bright Hearth. It's good to be here with you guys, and I'm joined today, this wonderful early summer evening, by my lovely wife, Lexy, and our lovely Penny Rennie, Penelope. Say hi to the listeners, everybody.
Hello, listeners.
Penny, why don't you say hi to the listeners?
She doesn't speak English yet, so.
What, does she speak any other languages? I think they can probably hear. She's enjoying
She's very hungry.
A meal. And she eats the way I do. She's like, this is good. Oh, this is pretty dang good. I'm enjoying
Maybe we'll get some giggles out of
here.
her later.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Coos.
If she does her jumps, for sure.
Daddy's here, so she'll be happy.
Big Penny. Well, welcome back, guys. We're glad that you're here. And a couple quick reminders. This is going to be coming out, just a couple, like May 26th. Actually, our oldest's
birthday.
12th birthday. Which makes me feel old. Our 14th anniversary is coming up, and one of our children is practically a teenager.
Yeah, and he has a gym membership and an email now.
Yeah, we had to get him an email for his Titus II correspondence so he could learn how to be an adult. And what other things has he been doing late? He's been
cooking dinner once a week for us.
Dinner.
I mean, he cooks way more than that, but he fully took over dinner at least once a week.
He's a champion. He's he's graduating primary school. Heading into secondary school at St. Brendan's this coming school year. So, man, it's been good. And most importantly, he has recently completed my challenge to memorize the Lay of Yarrandil as translated by Bilbo Baggins in The Last Homely House, the House of Elrond, Rivendell.
He did. I was really shocked how long it was
It's quite long.
When he was doing it last night for us.
Yeah, it is quite long. Yarrandil was a mariner that tarried in Arvernia.
No, it's
He built a boat of Timberfell and Nimberthell the journey.
We don't need to.
Her sails he wove of silver fair.
Are you jealous, though, that he knows the whole thing and you don't?
Of silver were her lantern's made. My favorite part is when he says, in panoply of ancient kings, enchanted rings, he armored them. That line just goes hard. The meter of it, the rhythm. So that is not what this episode of Bright Hearth is about, but I figured we'd give you a quick update. We do have Penny here, and we're going to jump into that first rule for homemakers. But before we do that, a lot of you guys have asked recently just how Penny's birth went. What was the story? How'd it go? Last baby, when Alfred showed up 2 years ago, we actually did a quick little walkthrough on Patreon. But this time we figured we'd just weave it into this episode. And
I will do an in the kitchen on more. My birth prep was totally different this time. So I will do an in the kitchen on that. But
was that helpful?
Was what
Changing up how you did it all?
Yes, I
made a
think
difference?
so.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? You're the one observing with.
I don't want to like pin it all down to like, this is the thing, because God does what the Lord wants. But we did end up in the hospital with Alfred, and we didn't with Penny. So it did seem like it went really well. I mean, with little Penny.
And that includes a hemorrhage too on top of it.
Yeah.
Which shows me, I don't know.
So tell the listeners want to know, how did Penny arrive here? She was born.
She was born.
It wasn't a stork.
No, it wasn't.
The mailman did not deliver her in an Amazon package. She was born here at our home in Ogden, Utah. She is quite satisfied with her dinner. She's enjoying it. Tell us a little bit about it. How'd it go?
Well, I had 2 due date babies, and I was just assuming this was not going to be a due date baby.
Yeah.
And my due date was on ordination Sunday. So I was really hoping I would go past my due date, because I really didn't want to mess up the details of ordination Sunday.
Yeah, I had to ordain two pastors.
But I also just like wanted Ben and Ethan to be ordained.
Yeah, they've been in the process for like 16 months.
Yes.
And we had the due date set, and it was like, the elder team decided if the baby was born, we'd wait a couple weeks so I could preach the ordination.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be a big deal, but.
And Ben was like, March 30th, which is the Sunday I was doing the ordination, and her due date, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were.
Yep.
He was like, look, man, I love the baby, like super excited for you guys, but really hope that you make it. Worst case scenario would have been you go into like real strong labor after first service, because then it's
that's literally almost what happened.
And it's almost what happened. Yeah.
No, I knew if I went overdue, then postpartum, I probably wouldn't make it to their ordination. And I would have been really bummed to miss out on their ordination. So
yeah. But you made it. You got through church with all of the people, all of our people.
Well, I did. I woke up at 3:30 with contractions and was like, oh shoot.
In the morning.
And I hadn't really had a ton of contractions. It wasn't like, I mean, I had maybe had, I guess I did get really sick though. That's true. 5 days before she was born.
Yeah.
I got the stomach bug, which I will spare you all the gory details, but I did end up needing emergency IVs at home. So
which luckily we had we were able to get this lady who comes to your house.
I don't know if that's normal in other places.
And gives you an IV.
But it's cool. If you guys have that, it's called like IV concierge. If you have it, they can even do stuff when you, because she gave me the morning sickness blend is what it was. So I had been contracting all night with the stomach bug. Didn't know if I was in labor or not, but everyone agreed you need to get IVs. So that was cool.
We didn't want you to be super dehydrated going into labor and have to be hospitalized or something.
So I ended up spending like the next few days recovering from sickness.
Yeah, that was a little touch and go there.
But then I did feel better, and then I went into real labor. So, and I didn't want to freak out. I'll talk more about it on the Patreon page, but I just was kind of like, I know this is going to be long, most likely. It's better for me to take all the kids to church and have regular contractions there. All my friends are around. Someone could deliver the baby if something happened, than me sitting here stressing about it while Brian is there all day. So that's what I did. I don't even remember. I think some of the elders' wives knew I was having regular contractions, and I could sit through most of the service, but then I did have to get up and walk around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just really did not want it to pick up before you got home. And I think our mind really does know that.
Yeah.
Because it was basically like you came home and within 2 to 3 hours, I was probably in active labor at that point. Yep. So, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't.
Some labors you've had like 30 hours of active labor.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I've been praying this time, was just like less than 24 and less painful.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm curious your thoughts, because for me, it was less painful. I have a hard time knowing though, this was the only other labor that was this painless was my other sugar-free pregnancy. And I was also sugar-free this time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was me mentally coping with it better, being prepared in lots of different ways that I just didn't always prepare for in the past. So.
Well, hey, everybody, consider this your official invite to join us here in Ogden, Utah for our annual New Christendom Press Conference this June 12th to the 14th. We're going to be having a great time. Lots of great speakers, live episode of the King's Hall, live episode of Haunted Cosmos. I'll be putting on a concert, a singles mixer, a pastor's breakfast, a business mixer, a VIP hangout. We've got it all, and you need to go to newchristendompress.com/2025, link in the description, to get tickets and more information. We hope to see you there. What are you waiting for? When you have a busy house, the immediate demands of activities, events, and never-ending to-do lists can overshadow critical long-term decisions. Life insurance, financial planning, education savings, and retirement are continually backburnered. Joe Garrissey and his team from Backwards Planning Financial will help you maximize financial tools, management, and strategies so you can focus on your home and have confidence for your financial future. Visit backwardspanningfinancial.com, that is backwardspanningfinancial.com, or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to develop a plan for the future. Hey there, friends. Let me tell you about Gray Toad Tallow. They're a family-owned small business passionate about creating skincare products that nourish your skin with pure, wholesome ingredients. For centuries, tallow has been valued for its moisturizing and healing properties, and Gray Toad Tallow is dedicated to sharing these benefits with your family. They strive to keep their products affordable and accessible, aiming to be a blessing to you and your family. Visit graytoadtallow.com to learn more and try a balm sample pack. And don't forget to use code BRIGHT15, that's all caps, BRIGHT15, for 15% off your order. Thanks for supporting this great small business. Ready to feel like yourself again? Rebecca Belch, founder of Live Oak Integrative Health, is a board-certified functional medicine provider helping women and families achieve lasting generational health. Using advanced testing and personalized care, she uncovers the root causes and builds sustainable plans for every stage of life. And Bright Hearth listeners can get $50 off any of 3 packages. So head to liveoakintegrativehealth.com to schedule your free call and make sure you tell her that Bright Hearth sent you for $50 off one of 3 packages. I still think having moved.
We moved. I switched midwives.
Was a big
There was a lot less stress on me. So, yeah.
Yeah, overall. So you were in labor most of the afternoon into the evening. Midwife was actually stuck several hours away.
When you had told me, I was like, I just don't, because I was handling it so well, I was like, you kept saying, when are you going to tell her? And I'm like, I think I'm fine. Like, you're like, I think you should probably tell the midwife.
Tell the midwife. You're having contractions like 4 minutes apart. You need to tell the midwife.
Yeah, and she was on her way home from being out of town. So anyways, she called me right away when I sent her over my contraction timer and was like, we're coming right now. Do not have the baby before we get there. If the baby starts coming, you need to get on the phone with me or give the phone to Brian, because she didn't think she was going to make it.
Man, I'm a little offended.
What?
That she didn't believe that I have everything it takes to deliver a baby regardless of the circumstances.
She was fine. She just knew my concerns based on my past labors.
Which I don't.
And I'm thankful she was here given what happened, to be honest.
The best part was that, so we had Alfred. Was it due date?
Oh, yeah. So that was my due date. So, yes, I was in active labor on my due date.
And Alfred was born on Mother's Day on the due date 2 years ago, right?
He was like 10 days overdue, baby.
It was very Mother's Day that I'm thinking about.
Yes.
But
Cyril and Winnie were due date babies, though.
Penny made it
4 minutes.
4 minutes to spare. It was 11:56 p.m. when Penny poked her way into the world. That was a weird way of saying it. I was trying to think of a non-weird way of saying it.
You didn't
And then I
succeed.
made it worse. When Penny joined us, and here's the best part. We didn't know, like you guys know this, we didn't find out the sex of the baby beforehand. We thought and the thing is, we were 90% it's going to be a boy. I just was. For like 5 different
even
reasons.
when the midwives were pulling out the blankets, they were like, wow, you literally thought this was a boy.
Baby comes out, they hand the baby over, and I'm like, that's a girl. Immediately saw the evidence and knew. And my heart exalted.
You were so
exalted because I love our boys. I love our boys. I love my girls. We have 2 girls already, 4 boys. And I was really just thinking, it's going to be a boy. I'm super excited. Boys are awesome. But I'd love to have another girl. I love my little girls. I get to write another song if I have another girl song. Girls are so sweet and nice and fluffy and adorable and squeaky. And little Penny came out, and she was indeed a girl. But then it did get a little scary there for a little bit because everything was normal. In fact, the midwife said, like, oh, you're not bleeding very much. There's nothing. There's no big deal. You've actually not bled very much at all. But then within about an hour, it was like, there's a lot of bleeding going on.
Well, yeah, the midwife, she was actually getting ready to leave. And she said, well, she had been reading like the postpartum package to me. And I kept sitting there in bed thinking, this is my 7th baby. What's going on? Like, I can't understand her. Nothing's making sense. And I just kept telling myself, like, suck it up, Lexi. Pay attention. Pay attention. Why can't you just pay attention? Figure out what she's saying. And she said, okay, before you leave, you need to get up. It's my rule that you have to get up and go to the bathroom before I leave. And I was like, okay, whatever, not a big deal. And so I get up and there's just so much blood, like so much blood. And so what had happened was I was hemorrhaging, but didn't know it because of the way I was sitting in bed, but I could tell something was happening. And that's why I couldn't focus on anything going on. And then, so that was like 2 hours that we kept trying to get it to stop. But I didn't know, it was just different from what I thought hemorrhage would be like. It didn't feel scary. I felt weird, but it didn't feel like an emergency, and she handled it very well. No one panicked.
No.
So I wasn't scared. And then after it was 2 hours, she was like, okay, this isn't stopping. I need to give you Pitocin. So, which I'm glad she did, because I was like at the far end of my blood loss, and she knew. I had extensive conversations with her about transfusions. And so she knew that was something I really wanted to avoid. And I'm thankful for the Pitocin because, I mean, it worked. It saved me a trip to the hospital and saved me my life. So, but then she left.
She left at about 3 a.m. and we both lay down.
Went to sleep.
Penny went to sleep. I think I'd been asleep for about 45 minutes when I heard some squeaking, some like faint cries from the bathroom that's connected to our room. And I was like, surely that can't be Lexi, who was given instructions not to move by herself.
But again, part of it was just because it didn't feel like an emergency to me. No one freaked me out. I wasn't panicked. This didn't seem like the hemorrhage I had imagined in my mind.
So long story short, within about a minute, I mean, I bolted up. It's like it was 4:15. It'd been like an hour or less. And long story short, it ends with her collapsed.
I did pass out
in a small pool of blood. And like she fainted onto me and onto the floor. And I didn't have my phone because my phone had been sitting next to me. And I was like, I don't really know what to do because she was out cold.
You didn't know if it was like continual bleeding and we needed to call an ambulance or
I couldn't tell
what was going on.
Within about 30 seconds, I could tell you were not actually bleeding, that you had probably fainted, like you weren't actively losing blood at that moment. And so my mom had come over and was helping through the birth. And I was calling for her quite loudly, but she was asleep too in another room. So she didn't hear. So I'm like, I guess I am just going to have to deadlift my wife and carry her somewhere because I couldn't leave her. Like she was propped up on me halfway. It was tile floor. I felt bad just like leaving her there. So I picked her up and put her back in bed and then called the midwife, and she was like, show me everything. And it was fine.
It was great.
She was like, no, she's fine. Let her sleep. She fainted.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a little exciting. My blood pressure and heart rate was fairly high.
I still wasn't like worried or like literally I remember thinking, oh, he's so strong. I'm so glad he's so strong. He's carrying me back to bed. I wasn't even like, oh, maybe I'm bleeding to death.
You had not spoken in 2 minutes at that point.
I know.
You were completely out cold until well after I laid you down. You were just kind of floating.
So now I
Fairly in
know,
and out.
like, you feel dizzy when you have
Weak.
lost a large amount of blood.
Yeah, it was
It was
a
just a
little
new
scary.
experience for both of us. So yeah.
But Penny's been great. Mama healed up great. We have been very blessed and didn't end up
Hi.
having to
Hello.
go to the hospital or anything like that. So we're thankful, especially after having to do a transfer with Alfred, and very, thankful. Alfred's good. Mama was good, but it was definitely tough to have to spend a few days in the hospital after 2 home births before that, and all of the rigmarole they go through, and they held us extra long because we didn't do everything they wanted us to.
Blackmail.
Yeah, they blackmailed
Good
us
old
pretty
blackmail.
much. Like we've had friends recently have like CPS called on them in births because of ridiculous stuff too. Like, you won't use my eye goop. I'm calling the cops. What? Are you serious? So that was a little crazy, but yep, very thankful. And that's the story. That's the lore, the origin story of Penny Rennie.
Yes, you're so sweet.
And she's very cute. Very, very cute. Now her favorite pastimes are doing jumps with Dad and spitting up in Dad's beard, which she did this afternoon while I was bouncing her.
Chat with all the people.
And chatting. She's squeaking pretty loud over
So
there.
cute. You think we're talking to you, huh? We are. You're cute.
Amazing. Okay. So let's talk about this little mini series we're going to be doing. Tell us a little bit about it, babe. What are we doing?
I don't even know. I was thinking about monasteries, how they have the rules.
The order.
Rules. Yeah. And I don't know what got me thinking about just probably postpartum and like all the different ways you're mentally trying to grapple with your workload and remember the point of it all and not be overwhelmed, not be grouchy, but still hold to good ideals. And then I was just thinking of how helpful it would be for like young moms to have a set of principles before them. Basically, like these are tested and true from the older moms. Live your life according to these rules, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So I hope to actually go through this with our ladies at church later on in the summer. So yeah, I've kind of been compiling some of these like big principles to keep in mind. And that's kind of the origin story of this series.
We've done the origin story of Penny Rennie. We've done the origin story of the series. And now we're going to get into the first rule for the homemaker, which is that you are not your own. And we referenced the Heidelberg Catechism. This is just a very famous answer, probably the top 2 most famous catechism questions and answers in the world are the Westminster Shorter Catechism, number 1. What is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And the Heidelberg Catechism, what is your only comfort in life and death? That I am not my own, but belong to God. That's the short version. And we're giving this as a rule. So there are things to obey in this rule, that you are not your own. It's a command as well as it really is a rule. But the first thing I think I just wanted to emphasize that's easy to miss when you talk about this as a rule, like, hey, homemaker, you don't belong to yourself. You belong to the Lord. You belong to your husband. You belong to your people. The first thing I want you to see is actually that this rule is not first a command, but it's first a comfort.
Yeah.
That's it's first a comfort, not a command. And that's how it's supposed to function, which comes through in the answer of the Heidelberg Catechism, and which is why we included that there. It's what is your comfort in life and death? It's actually supposed to be comforting to us that we don't just belong to ourselves, captains of our own little ships, gods of our own little universes, going around willing things in and out of existence and serving ourselves and worshiping ourselves and living for ourselves, because it turns out that would actually make us miserable. And people that live like that are absolutely miserable. So what are your thoughts on that? First, just this rule as a comfort and not a command.
Well, I think it should be a warning too, that when you're making yourself miserable, especially as a mother, it trickles down to those around you too. And I think that's why this feels like such a warning to me, though, like you said, especially like postpartum young moms, maybe like your first or second kid, you're finally feeling I think it's an Indian proverb from that Amy Carmichael used to say all the time, children tie the mother's feet. Mm. You can kind of feel like you've lost your identity. And I think it's important to remember, like, in those formative, sanctifying seasons, that it should be a comfort that you are Christ, even if you don't feel like you have your footing where you are, because it does. It all feels like mush.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, secondly, about kind of like what we say with women when they're married, they're helpers to their husband's mission. They are not the mission themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's the same thing with the homemaker. Like, Christ has given you a mission, and it's fulfilling the needs of the people in your home.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily writing your to-do list for yourself every day.
Right.
The Lord is giving you part of that, and those are good works that He's prepared in advance for you to walk in. And so just like keeping that the priority over and above anything else that you want to pursue in your home, which those other side projects, whatever, can be good things, hospitality and teaching your children and all sorts of things. But remembering part of your purpose as a homemaker is to be meeting those needs.
Yeah. If I could give you guys a grammatically incorrect aphorism, I would say that good works work good. Like, God did put good works in front of you to walk in. And that's one of the things it means to not belong to yourself.
Yeah.
He gives you things to do, and it's not optional that you go do them. But because God made you and He knows how He made you and for what ends He made you, the means and the ends that He appointed you for, when you walk in them and towards those ends and by those means, they will be for your good, because He's a good God. He is a benevolent God. And so good works work good, meaning they work for you. They actually, when you walk in them, they bring you more real joy than the alternative.
Yeah.
They work good for you too. So there are a few levels that this rule is a comfort first. It's a rule of comfort, that God in His providence watches over us in such a way that not a hair can fall from our heads without the will of the Father. That God is working all things together for our good. That I am not actually ultimately responsible for bringing myself to glory. Yeah. I'm not ultimately responsible for making all the works of my hand prosper.
Yes.
I'm not ultimately responsible for determining the outcome of obedience to the Lord in my life. There is someone who is above me, who owns me, and has said, praise God, that He's working for my good. I mean, it's not, you could have a master over you that's wicked and evil and is actually abusing you and working you for bad ends for yourself. But our God is not like that. He's actually belonging to our God is a glory. It is a good thing. It is a comfort. And so before we talk about the ways that this is a command, it is a rule, and it has real teeth to it, has real edges to it, like things you can run into and, go, ouch, that hurt. My flesh wanted to go over here, and this rule is preventing me from going over there. We have to first understand foundationally that this is good news.
Yeah, it reminds me of the verse in Isaiah that says He's gentle with those who are with young.
Mm-hmm.
Like He knows your frame and He knows your season. He made you that way for a reason.
Yeah. He knows your frame because He made you. And that's such a comfort when you're in the midst of a hard providence, or when you're in the midst of you're running into your flesh and you're running into the rule, the iron, unyielding nature of God's law hurts to run into. And in those times when it hurts to run into them, we have to, like when we're saying, no, Lord, I don't want to do this because it feels like I'm dying. It feels like you're hurting me.
Yeah.
To do this thing, to submit to this thing, to obey your law. That's when we have to back up and say, who do we belong to? Mm-hmm. What has He said? What has He promised? What has He done already for us? What has He said He's doing for us? What even in this is He doing for me? To whom do I belong?
Yeah, I think it was Elizabeth Elliott that said, trust the hands that were crucified for you.
Yes.
Which, I mean, suffering, talk about suffering, her whole entire life was that.
Yeah.
And so for someone to be able to say that and accept providences from crucified hands, I mean, it really, that is what it comes down to, though, when you're choosing a good or a bad attitude in the face of the stomach bug.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why this is a number one level rule for life, that you're not your own. It's a foundational thing. It's something that you have to remember in all of the things that you do. And it's something that is going to bind and guard you and keep you in all that you do and direct all that you do. So when you're asking a question about like, what should I do? What should I do in my life? What things should I focus on? What jobs do I have right now? It's going to be a safe guide to go, oh, I don't belong to me. Who do I belong to? Okay, I belong to the Lord, and what has he told me to do? Well, he's also told me not only to do things, but that I belong to other people too.
Mm-hmm.
I belong to my husband. Okay, what does it mean to belong to my husband? I belong to my children in a sense. What does it mean to belong to my children? I belong to my church and to my brothers and sisters. What does it mean to belong to them? To be invested mutually in one another. So let's talk about some of those aspects of this rule. What does it mean that you are not your own, for example, but belong to your husband?
I think we talked about this last episode a little bit. We've already mentioned it, but I really think it comes back to remembering like you're on a mission with your husband. You can't turn every aspect of your marriage into accomplishing your own goals, be it, I don't know, hobbies or career or maybe you're the super controlling homeschool mom that the dad wishes she was a little more chill and brought in tutors more often. You know, like it can go on both ends, but just remembering your husband is helping dictate what some of that mission is for your family.
Yeah. And
should be setting that.
So there's multiple levels that this works on. This, like, I belong to my husband. There's the level of my husband is my head. The husband is the head of the wife, Paul says in Ephesians 5. What does that mean? Well, it means that he is ultimately responsible to lead and direct the home as Christ leads and directs the church. And with that, for him comes responsibilities and duties. He doesn't belong to himself either. He belongs to the Lord. And in belonging to the Lord, he's been given this duty as the head of his wife to love and lead her like Christ loves and leads his church. There's another level as well that Paul makes clear in 1 Corinthians 7, a passage I'm going to be preaching in a few weeks from now as I record this, but when he talks about the husband and wife belong to one another, like her body is not hers and his body is not his, but they mutually, in being one flesh, they belong to one another. They have certain rights and also duties that come along with those rights over the body and the person of the other. Mm-hmm. So there's this other level to marriage, and this is a unique sense in which we belong. A wife belongs to her husband. This is a unique sense that's not in the same way that she might belong to her children or belong in some way to the church, having duties to the church. So what kind of comfort comes with that, and what kind of duties come with that belonging to your husband? The comfort,
it's so much more simple to me. Mm-hmm. Especially if there's something that I'm fretting over that you give me a very clear, like, this way, not that. Okay, that's it. So it's a comfort to me there. What was the second part you said?
So it's a comfort. Let me understand that really quick. So it's a comfort. You're saying that my husband, I'm a homemaker. Okay. My husband is the head of my home. He's my head.
Do you need an example?
Yeah. Give me an example.
Like when we were talking, we did our interval the other night.
Which is our 6-week plan as a schedule. Yes.
And I was fretting about some hospitality stuff.
Uh-huh. I do remember this.
That was like, simple enough. Okay, I don't need to feel bad about this anymore because he told me XYZ. And that made total sense. And I was overlooking that.
And if what I told her is less than what she would have felt obligated to do, she now has the freedom to say, my husband told me. He's the one this might not even be the perfectly right call, but God said for me to listen to him.
Yeah.
And he's not sinning, so I'm going to listen. And on the other hand, if it's maybe more, if there was a time when I said, like, I think we need to do more hospitality than you wanted to, there's also comfort in that because you walk away going, my job is not now to fuss and fret about this.
Yeah.
It's just to do it. And he's going to help and we're going to get it done. So I get what you're saying now. There's comfort.
Does that make sense?
Just saying, my husband's my head.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to do and husbands should hear that, because I know we have men who listen to the show as well. Husbands should hear that and say, there's a weight and responsibility there, but part of the weight and responsibility is taking the mantle of leadership as a service to your wife. Because you can feel like sometimes, oh, but I don't just want to make the call. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be domineering. I've heard that it's all about like, I'm just a tie-breaking vote in this house. Actually, if you don't take up the mantle of headship actively, proactively, you're not helping your wife.
No, she's probably like mentally fretting for days over little decisions that you could clear up in 5 seconds.
Yeah, like I have questions pulled up from listeners every episode, and I'm sorting through them. And one of them, almost every week, there's some version of this question someone asked. It's like, what does it look like for a wife whose husband is not leading and who's leaving all the choices and questions and decisions to her? What should she do? We get that question almost every week at Bright Hearth on our inbox, which you can, there's a send us a text button in the description that you can use in the podcast version. So it's like, this is not an uncommon failing for husbands to take active leadership. And a lot of times husbands are doing it out of a misplaced sense of wanting to love their wives. They're like, I want to be really gentle. And you should be gentle with your wife and treat her as the weaker vessel, but you need to take up the mantle of leadership because she belongs to you. And part of the way that means for her is that God has told her to submit to your headship. So she should be able to feel your headship, like it should actually direct. A head should direct. So it's a comfort. How is it a rule? How is it challenging to belong to a husband? Where does this rule put edges in place that a woman can run into and maybe sometimes experience frustration or discomfort?
When her husband tells her she can't or shouldn't do something she wants to do. I mean, it's pretty simple.
I see. Really? Tell me more.
Like an example?
Sure. Like
I guess the rule automatically what comes to mind for you associating is submission. Like if that's the rule, you need to learn to submit when you don't want to, especially.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side of this.
Yeah, there's
comfort and there should be submission too.
Yep. And submission is, it's one of those concepts that we've tended to water down in the way we talk about it in the church out of a fear of offending women, just frankly. Like, for example, and we do this in marriage and we do it in the church as well with pastors, with the relationship to the elders of the church. Wow, Penny's making some noises over there that are surprising from such a tiny, cute little girl.
Toots, toots, toots.
Oh, boy. And I'm getting at here that a lot of the time we talk about submission as a tie-breaking thing. You know, like, there's a tie-breaking vote on something where they talk about it, and then he should just do what she says. Submission, though, actually, the idea behind it, strongly implied, is that sometimes you will not want to listen to the head, and you ought to submit to him anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're joined now by Alfred as well. You probably didn't hear any break because of the magic of editing, but Alfred is now with us. Let me continue my train of thought there with another example from the church. We tell this to members coming in through membership class, and we tell them that when you're taking vows as a member, the membership vows, one of them is to submit to the government of the church, the governing authorities of the church, and that includes submitting to one another as Christians. It also includes submitting to the elders of the church. And we remind them that submission is not, it's not submission if you only obey when you really want to. Sometimes submission really is, even for the church member, going to be like, the elders are telling me to do this, and I don't want to do it. Now, it's not sinful. They're not violating Scripture. It's within the boundaries of the reasonable authority of the elder. And I don't like the decision they're making on this thing. And submission means I will obey. And that's difficult. That's difficult. Every man who hears that's like, we're very independent in Western American culture, very much independent, to a fault sometimes when it comes to these things. But that really is what it means to submit. So we've sometimes watered down submission to just like, he has to persuade me to agree with him, and then I submit to him. And until then, I just keep disagreeing until we get to a tie-breaking vote scenario, and then he's supposed to lay down and say, well, servant leadership means I do what she says. But genuinely, what it means to belong to your husband in this way is like, wives, sometimes your husband might say, we're buying this house, we're making this education decision. I've thought about it. I've prayed about it. We've talked about it. We don't agree right now, but I'm convinced that we need to make this decision. I'm the head of the house. I have this responsibility. And with that responsibility means I really do have to do what I believe before God is going to be best for our home. It might mean something difficult, like I really believe that this extended family member, we can no longer be in contact with them because they're sinning and they're introducing poison into our family or causing all sorts of drama, and they're unrepentant. And so the kids can't be in contact with Uncle Billy anymore, and he might have to make a call like that. And there's a duty there, but remember the comfort as well in the midst of it.
Look, Bright Hearth listeners, my lawyers have told me that I'm not allowed to guarantee that using Indigo Sundry Soap Company products will make you more attractive, but I am guaranteeing that that is true. If you're looking for premium handmade soaps without the seed oils or other nasty hormone disruptors, then you need to check out our partners at Indigo Sundry Soap Company. You can find them at indigosundrysoap.com. And hey, if you use code Bright Hearth, all caps Bright Hearth, you get 10% off your order. So check it out and subscribe to one of their regular deliveries today. The Proverbs tell us that in the multitude of counselors, there's victory. KeepWise Partners applies this to your business, building Christendom through your work. Running a small business is tough, but you're not alone. KeepWise Partners provides expert bookkeeping and advisory services with integrity, sharing your values to help meet your goals. And look, we really believe this. We use KeepWise Partners here at New Christendom Press. So visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derrick Taylor at 781-680-8000 for a free consultation. KeepWise Partners. Excellence in finance and accounting for your business. Looking for the gift to last 1,000 generations? Check out Rooted Pines Homestead, where they work together as a family economy to create natural wooden toys and herbal remedies. Coated with natural, whole ingredients, their toys are safe enough for the mouth of babes. Visit rootedpineshomestead.com and use code BRIGHT10, that's all caps, BRIGHT10 at checkout for 10% off your order. Link in the show notes below.
Like, okay, he's going to give an answer for this call. I am going to actually give an answer for whether or not I submitted to my husband. I'm not necessarily, as a homemaker, as a wife, going to give an account before God for the outcome of every one of his calls, but I am going to give an account for, God says, hey, you made a vow to this man, and I told you to submit to him, and you, instead of doing that, you nagged and argued and never made peace. And so, babe, what does it look like for a wife to submit to her husband when she doesn't agree? Like, what does it actually look like practically?
I think maybe these are the steps leading up to it, but I think it's totally okay in a self-controlled way with reasonableness to express why you disagree.
Yeah.
Where you disagree. But at the same time, that has to be accompanied with, but I trust you. I'm for you. I believe you're thinking through this.
Yeah.
With charity is, I guess, what I'm saying. So that's not saying you don't have an opinion, but you have to be charitable with the way you're sharing it. If you can't do that, you might just need to be quiet and literally physically bite your tongue.
And I don't know any godly husbands that don't want to know what their wife thinks about a decision like this.
I don't know either.
He wants to know. Like when I do premarital counseling, talking about submission and headship and respect, and that one thing that we go over carefully is the difference between nagging and talking about something.
Yeah.
Like even nagging is like, it comes with malice and frustration. And it's like, I am annoyed that you're not doing this thing. I'm reminding you for the 50th time. I am upset and heated and annoyed, and I want you to feel how annoyed I am with you. That's totally different from a wife saying, oh, honey, tonight after the dinner, can you help me take the blinds down? Last week, I know we talked about it. I still, we haven't gotten to it yet. That's not nagging. Like, that's not actually nagging. It's not nagging for a wife to say, big education decision here. I've thought about it. This is what I think. What do you think? That's not nagging. That's not being disrespectful. He really needs to know that, what she's thinking, because God gave him her, and she's supposed to help him. So if she's going to help him, he has to know what she thinks.
Yeah. So then but it does have to get to the point where you say, and it can even be, I mean, this rarely has happened in our marriage, but there's been times where I'm like, okay, I trust you. This is what I would like to see happen. I know that's not going to happen, but I trust you, where you can tell them that, like, if you ever want to revisit this, I'm open to it.
But
available. I also will submit to what you're saying until then.
Yes. And then cheerfully.
Yeah.
Not sabotaging it, or you're then like, this is
not
how
obsessing about it every second of the day.
This is the way I think about it. And I'm a man, so this is the way I think about it. But ladies, I think you'll understand what I'm getting at. If you have a captain on a battlefield and he's talking to a squad sergeant, and the captain outranks the squad sergeant, and they talk about a tactical situation, and they disagree, and the squad sergeant is supposed to tell the captain, I disagree. He's a good leader. He's supposed to do that. I think we should do this. And the captain says, nope, I'm more experienced. I have the call. Whatever it is, this is the call. When the captain gives the order to the squad sergeant, and the squad sergeant goes down to his squad and he's explaining the orders, he does not say to his squad, now the captain's totally wrong, but he outranks me, and so we're going to now do this against my will. He comes and he says, this is what we decided to do, and this is the order. Like, it's a huge difference between we're actually still two people instead of one flesh with a head and a body who are now going to accomplish this mission together, and there's actually two heads arguing with one another, and one is begrudgingly submitting. When the call is made, it's now the call of the family, and the wife should actually try her best to accomplish it cheerfully. Alfie wants to talk in the microphone. Do you want to say hi to the people? No, he's like,
of course not, now that the microphone's there.
Okay, buddy. Okay, so what does it mean? Anything else on the husband part?
Not that I can think of, no.
You don't belong to, you're not your own, but you belong to your children.
Yeah.
What does that mean? This is different from the husband because you don't submit to your children. There's a different sense in which this is true, but it is true in a sense.
Well,
what does that mean?
I think of this a lot of the times in terms of your time management, like, and your goals for your day-to-day activities. You belong to the needs of your children.
Yeah.
You don't get to sit and finish that book if your child is sick and needs you.
Yeah.
Or your child wants you to read a book to them. Mm-hmm. I think those are the smaller ones we overlook, is remembering not just like basic needs, but how can we go over and above and bless them more?
Yeah.
That's what our time is given to us for as mothers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like you don't, it's not that you belong to your children in the same way you do your husband, where he's the head of his wife, but that you have been given a charge over your children as a homemaker. And now it's actually more like the way that a husband has charge over his home.
Yeah.
Where, in a sense, the husband and the husband and the wife together could say, these children belong to us, which is true. The children are their children, and they actually have a command from the Lord to obey their mother and father. But the mother and father have actually the more difficult and more mature position of rule in the hierarchy. They have a position in the hierarchy where their job is to see to the good of the children, and they're to give themselves away for the sake of the good of their children.
Yeah. When I think about this, I think it was from A Chance to Die by Elizabeth Elliott, which is a really good book. The way I remember her saying it was that the difference between an orphanage and your home is that somebody is there to change the diaper. Mm. And that I always remember that when I get frustrated of like, I would rather be sitting here than doing XYZ, or I'd rather be working on that project than XYZ.
Yep.
But you belong to them because your home is a home to meet needs of people. It's not an orphanage. They have not been left without a caretaker.
You have been given to give yourself, like you've been given strength and resources and gifts and a measure of faith so that you can give those things away in service of a group of people that are related to you in different webs of relationship. And your children are certainly high on that list, where God has said, you have a duty, fathers, to love and nurture your children. Mothers have been given a duty to love and nurture and lead and guide and correct their children. And so you belong to your children. it should feel like you're being given away for their sake. Like you're actually doing it right. When
it's not a
feels
bad
like
thing.
that. We'll end this whole list, this whole series with another rule that expands on this quite a bit about practically what it looks like to be given away for the sake of your people. Lastly, what does it mean to be you belong to your church? I think this is an easy one to miss because it's easy for us. Like we're all about productive Christian households, like me and my husband and my kids and our house, and we build our house. It's a productive mission and all these things. And then it's like, yeah, but you and your household, you belong to your church. Like you have obligations outside of your house. Your household doesn't just exist for your household. It exists for other people too.
I think this is another really helpful one for a homemaker because, again, it just simplifies where we spend our time and our energy. And I guess maybe some of this depends on the size of your church. Our church is broken into parishes, though. So a small church would just be one parish, I guess. But if you see the needs for a family in the church, you know your duty is probably to them before you getting to paint your bathroom. You know what I mean?
It looks often. Think about it like this. There's a way that a homemaker could justify never serving people in her church because she would go, yeah, but that will cost our family something.
Yeah.
And I exist to serve my family, my children and my husband. And so like, if I bring a meal to this other family, it's going to inconvenience my children and husband. And there's ways, of course, that you can align the needs, but it's not there's no such thing as a free lunch. When you give $1 to serve someone in your church, you are not going to use that $1 for your household. When you give that hour or that 3 hours or that 2 hours to cook and bring food to somebody in need in the church, you don't have those 2 or 3 hours to serve your family the same way. So it's an easy thing for people to do, I think. It's tempting for all of us to say, yeah, but I belong to my children, I belong to my husband, I'm for this, and forget that your household is not the end.
Yeah, we live in a covenant community, and the household is what makes up the covenant of the body of Christ. And so, the point of your household is to build up the household of God.
Yes.
So don't forget about that part. And there's ways around it. I mean, for years, it's been hard for me to get meals to people that are hot. So I just made it a point to like make sure I have canned food on the shelf that I can take to people, you know, beef it up with some other stuff from the store or whatever, add a loaf of bread or cookies or something with it. But then I can still serve the church. Just drop it off at a more convenient time that's not right at dinner time, you know?
That is a good practical tip. And the way my brain interpreted the sentence you said is that it's hard for you to bring meals to people who are attractive, who are hot. Not that the meals were hot, but that the people were hot. And I was like,
Did I say it that way?
You said it's been hard for me to bring meals to people that are hot. and everybody understood it except me.
Okay. No,
you know,
a meal
meals.
train is usually like from 4 to 5:30 drop off dinner. And that's just a chaotic time.
Right.
For me, no one wants me showing up at their house
so
at that time.
You
with
got
my
beef
children.
stew and chili con carne and all sorts of things can't.
Correct. That I can easily
Easy to heat up.
There you go.
Yep. No, that's actually really good and practical. So there's wisdom, but it's still, there's always a cost. You're going to go, sometimes you're going to look at the calculus and say, I don't want to be given away
but if you're,
for this thing.
If the church, if building up God's people is one of your main duties every day, you should be strategic about how you're going to accomplish that.
Exactly. The church is the household of households. So we have to remember that just like I don't belong to me, my household doesn't belong to me. My household belongs to God, and we all belong to God together. And so we're going to serve one another.
A really good book, I feel like, on this topic is Face to Face.
Steve Wilkins.
Yeah. And I remember there was a section in there where he was talking about the strong word that Paul uses. I think it was in Romans on hospitality, like show one another hospitality. It's like a military term that he's making it obvious that he wants you to be strategic about how you're accomplishing showing hospitality to other people.
Yeah.
In a militant type of a way. We should be militant about our hospitality.
It's like organized and intentional, and you're thinking ahead.
And that's
it's not
everything
just, I feel like it.
Like, I don't know, maybe hosting a prayer group in your home, to babysitting for friends that just really need a night out, to like just having eyes to see the needs in your church, I guess.
Yep.
And enough selflessness to not always be thinking about your needs.
Yeah.
And to be creative enough to figure out how to meet them.
It's like if in all these things you're always just waiting to feel like it or have the bug
You're not going to
go do the thing, you won't. You'll very rarely do it.
Yeah.
We have to plan ahead and be intentional and actually act like we're directing an army or act like it's a great illustration. Act like militant. Armies march in an organized, hierarchical, rigid, they know where they're going. They have a destination. They're kitted out a certain way, and they're trying to achieve a very specific end. And we're like that too.
I think
our
too,
households.
Our hospitality schedule shows I can feel bad because if someone wants to hang out and have dinner, I'm like, yeah, but that's probably not going to happen for like 4 weeks because we are so scheduled with our hospitality.
So it happens.
And then our other, yes, exactly. So that it actually happens, and our other extracurriculars and family needs and extended family that's here, I can feel like this is impersonal, that I can't just spontaneously do things all the time. But actually, it's me keeping the structure there that helps me make the people the priority.
It's so we can do more of it, not less.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's the first rule. We'll land that one here. A homemaker's rules for life. First one, you are not your own. You do not belong to yourself. You don't exist to please yourself. But you will be most pleased in the long haul if you believe and live like you believe this rule. So don't forget this one. You got to stay tethered to this one all the time. It's easy to drift from it. Your emotions, the flesh, will often want to pull you off of this and say, no, you belong to you. And you have to tell your emotions. You have to tell your heart. You have to tell your flesh, no, I belong to the Lord. And the Lord told me this, and he made me. He knows my frame. He's for me. Last, we have a quick question I want to take up here. Very practical question from a listener. And before we do that, I want to just remind people that you have a book coming out. It's actually going to hit our warehouses in like a week from today.
Weird. Oh,
and
my.
It will be available for purchase at the New Christian Press Conference for the first time. And then we'll have it shipping and on our website right after that. So the New Christian Press Conference is the 12th through the 14th of June, just a few weeks from now. As this episode comes out, maybe you're listening to it later, but 2025, June 12th to 14th, we still have some tickets for our singles mixer, for all of our great events that we're going to be putting on in the conference. You can go to newchristianpress.com/2025 for those tickets and grab a book at the best price that we can do it, because it's without shipping and all that at the conference. We'll have it shipping though, and we'll tell you guys more about it once it's out and remind you. Just wanted to put that on your radar. This listener from Portland asked, what is our take on finances in marriage? Who should be in charge of them? And I think that's a great question. And really briefly, I'll give you my quick answer. I don't think there's a rule that a husband or a wife must be in charge of this or that aspect of the budget. There's no rule that says the husband must be the only one that manages any aspect of the budget, and the wife. What you should do is have a budget. That's you directing your finances as wise stewards of your home. And there's tons of good tools on this that you can look up and figure out. There's, if there's wise people in your church, even, you need help practically on this, but make your budget. And then you should be asking, like a husband should be leading in this, but you should be asking, who of us, in terms of the opportunity, availability, time, disposition, skills, gifting, is best fit in our situation and time of life to govern this aspect of the budget? And that can sometimes be the wife and sometimes be the husband. The husband, as the head of his home, needs to know what the money is, what's happening with it, where it's going, what the goal of it is, keeping tabs. But I do think in some marriages, the wife takes more of a balancing the checkbook type of role. And in some marriages, it's more the husband. In our marriage, Lexi couldn't log into our bank accounts if her life depended on it. She actually doesn't know how, probably. I do the finances. I do the budget, investing.
You've probably just really made people feel like pretty much offended some people.
I probably did. It's fine. And there's people, if I die, that will know about it and can help Lexi. Like, I'm not leaving. It is a thing to not leave. Like, if you die,
no, you talk very regularly to me about finances and things. What
we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. In some marriages, though, I know, like husbands who their wife is
accountants. We have lots of
she's an accountant.
Friends that the wives are accountants. Yeah.
And she loves it. And she's like, lives and breathes spreadsheets. He doesn't have to go, well, I'm the head of the host, therefore I have to do this personally.
Yeah.
He can actually say, you're my deputy, that's fine. So don't make the who of every particular thing the most important thing. Make the shape. He's the head. He should be directing the mission, and she should be helping accomplish that mission. And then practically how you work that out in wisdom can look a lot of different ways, depending on your gifts, situation, aptitudes, training. But you do need to do it. You can't just say, neither of us are that good at this. We don't care. We're just going to let it drift.
Someone needs to get good at it then.
No. You are responsible for stewarding the finances of your household well. So make sure you're doing that. I think that's a good enough brief answer to that question.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this episode. Remember, you guys can send us questions on the podcast description with the little send us a text button. Just remember, we are not able to answer those. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't respond in the text. Just as a reminder. So thanks for listening to this episode of Bright Hearth, everybody. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with me and Lexi and then Penny and then Alfred, and that this was helpful for you. And we'll catch you next time on Bright Hearth.